Hello, family. God bless everyone. Is getting to some very crucial times right now these days as the Lord is working his will across this earth and definitely in these lands to drive out the enemies of our family. We left off at Book of Jasher, chapter 39. So we will pick up there. When the sons of Jacob went from the city of Sarton, they had gone about 200 cubits when they met the inhabitants of Tapnach coming toward them. For they went out to fight with them because they had smitten the king of Tapnach and all his men. So all that remained in the city of Tapnach came out to fight with the sons of Jacob. And they thought to retake from them the booty and the spoil which they had captured from Chazar and Sarton. The rest of the men of Tapnach fought with the sons of Jacob in that place. And the sons of Jacob struck them, and they fled before them. They pursued them to the city of Arbelan, and they all fell before the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob returned and came to Tapnach to take away the spoil of Tapnach. And when they came to Tapnach, they heard that the people of Arbelan had gone out to meet them to save the spoil of their brothers. The sons of Jacob left 10 of their men in Tapnach to plunder the city, and they went out toward the people of Arbelan. The men of Arbelan went out with their wives to fight with the sons of Jacob, for their wives were experienced in battle. They went out, about 400 men and women. And all the sons of Jacob shouted with a loud voice. They all ran toward the inhabitants of Arbelan with a great and tremendous voice. The inhabitants of Arbelan heard the noise of the shouting of the sons of Jacob and their roaring like the noise of lions and like the roaring of the sea and its waves. And fear and terror possessed their hearts on account of the sons of Jacob. They were terribly afraid of them, and they retreated and fled before them into the city. The sons of Jacob pursued them to the gate of the city, and they came on them in the city. The sons of Jacob fought with them in the city, and all their women were engaged in slinging against the sons of Jacob. The combat was very severe among them all of that day till evening. And the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them. The sons of Jacob had almost perished in that battle. The sons of Jacob cried to the Lord and greatly gained strength toward evening. The sons of Jacob struck all the inhabitants of Arbelan by the edge of the sword, men, women, and little ones. Also, the remainder of the people who had fled from Sarton, the sons of Jacob struck them in Arbelan. And the sons of Jacob did to Arbelan and Tapnach as they had done to Chazar and Sarton. When the women saw that all the men were dead, they went on the roofs of the city and struck the sons of Jacob by showering down stones like rain. And the sons of Jacob hurried and came into the city and seized all the women and struck them with the edge of the sword. The sons of Jacob captured all the spoil and booty, flocks and herds and cattle. The sons of Jacob did to Machnaima as they had done to Tapnach, to Chazar, and to Shiloh. And they turned from there and went away. On the 5th day, the sons of Jacob heard that the people of Gash had gathered against them to battle, because they had slain their king and their captains. For there had been 14 captains in the city of Gash, and the sons of Jacob had slain them all in the first battle. And the sons of Jacob that day put on their weapons of war, and they marched to the battle against the inhabitants of Gash. In Gash there was a strong and mighty people of the Amorites. Gash was the strongest and best fortified city of all the cities of the Amorites, and it had 3 walls. The sons of Jacob came to Gash, and they found the gates of the city locked, and about 500 men standing at the top of the outermost wall. A people numerous as the sand on the seashore were in ambush for the sons of Jacob from outside the city at the rear. And the sons of Jacob approached to open the gates of the city. And while they were drawing near to it, those who were in ambush at the rear of the city came forth from their places and surrounded the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob were enclosed between the people of Gash, and the battle was both to their front and rear. All the men that were on the wall were casting from the wall on them arrows and stones. And Judah, seeing that the men of Gash were getting too strong for them, gave a most piercing and tremendous shriek, and all the men of Gash were terrified at the voice of Judah's cry. Men fell from the wall at his powerful shriek, and all those that were from without and within the city were greatly afraid of their lives. And the sons of Jacob still came closer to break the doors of the city, when the men of Gash threw stones and arrows on them from the top of the wall, and made them flee from the gate. The sons of Jacob returned against the men of Gash, who were with them from outside the city, and they struck them terribly. And striking against gourds, and they could not stand against the sons of Jacob, for fright and terror had seized them at the shriek of Judah. The sons of Jacob killed all those men who were outside the city. And the sons of Jacob still drew nearer to make an entrance into the city and to fight under the city walls. But they could not, for all the inhabitants of Gash who remained in the city had surrounded the walls of Gash in every direction. The sons of Jacob were unable to approach the city to fight with them. The sons of Jacob came near to one corner to fight under the wall. The inhabitants of Gash threw arrows and stones on them like showers of rain, and they fled from under the wall. And the people of Gash who were on the wall, seeing that the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them from under the wall, reproached the sons of Jacob in these words, saying, "What is the matter with you in the battle that you cannot prevail? Can you then do to the mighty city of Gash and its inhabitants as you did to the cities of the Amorites that were not so powerful? Certainly, To those weak ones among us, you did those things and killed them in the entrance of the city. For they had no strength when they were terrified at the sound of your shouting. And will you now then be able to fight in this place? Certainly, here you will all die, and we will avenge the cause of those cities that you have laid waste. And the inhabitants of Gash greatly reproached the sons of Jacob, and reviled them with their gods, and continued to cast arrows and stones on them from the wall. Judah and his brothers heard the words of the inhabitants of Gash, and their anger was greatly roused. And Judah was zealous of his God in this matter. And he called out and said, O Lord, help, send help to us and our brothers. And he ran at a distance with all his might, with his drawn sword in his hand. And he sprang from the earth, and by dint of his strength mounted the wall, and his sword fell from his hand. And Judah shouted on the wall, and all the men that were on the wall were terrified. Some of them fell from the wall into the city and died. And those who were yet on the wall, when they saw Judah's strength, were greatly afraid and fled for their lives into the city for safety. And some were emboldened to fight with Judah on the wall. They came close to him when they came close to kill him when they saw there was no sword in Judah's hand. And they thought of casting him from the wall to his brothers. 20 men of the city came up to assist them. They surrounded Judah and all shouted over him and approached him with drawn swords. They terrified Judah, and Judah cried out to his brothers from the wall. And Jacob and his sons drew the bow from under the wall and struck 3 of the men that were on the top of the wall. And Judah continued to cry, and he exclaimed, O Lord, help us. O Lord, deliver us. And he cried out with a loud voice on the wall, and the cry was heard at a great distance. After this cry, he again repeated a shout, and all the men who surrounded Judah on the top of the wall were terrified. They each threw his sword from his hand at the sound of Judah's shouting and his tremor, and fled. Judah took the swords which had fallen from their hands, and he fought with them and killed 20 of their men on the wall. About 80 men and women still ascended the wall from the city, and they all surrounded Judah. And the Lord impressed the fear of Judah in their hearts, so that they were unable to approach him. And Jacob and all who were with him drew the bow from under the wall, and they killed 10 more on the wall. They fell below the wall in front of Jacob and his sons. And the people on the wall, seeing that 20 of their men had fallen, still ran toward Judah with the drawn swords. But they could not approach him, for they were greatly terrified at Judah's strength. And one of their mighty men, whose name was Arad, approached to strike Judah on the head with his sword. When Judah hastily put his shield to his head, the sword hit the shield, and it was split in 2. The mighty man, after he had struck Judah, ran for his life at the fear of Judah. And his feet slipped on the wall, and he fell among the sons of Jacob who were below the wall. And the sons of Jacob struck him and killed him. And Judah's head pained him from the blow of the powerful man. Judah had nearly died from it. And Judah cried out on the wall, owing in the pain produced by the blow. When Dan heard him, and his anger burned within him, he also rose up and went a distance and ran and sprang from the earth and mounted the wall with his wrath excited strength. And when Dan came on the wall near to Judah, all the men on the wall fled who had stood against Judah. They went up to the second wall, and they threw arrows and stones on Dan and Judah from the second wall, and endeavored to drive them from the wall. And the arrows and stones struck Dan and Judah, and they had nearly been killed on the wall. Wherever Dan and Judah fled from the wall, they were attacked with arrows and stones from the second wall. Jacob and his sons were still at the entrance of the city below the first wall. And they were not able to draw their bow against the inhabitants of the city, as they could not be seen by them, being on the second wall. Dan and Judah, when they could no longer bear the stones and arrows that fell on them from the second wall, both sprang onto the second wall near the people of the city. When the people of the city who were on the second wall saw that Dan and Judah had come to them on the second wall, they all cried out and descended below between the walls. Jacob and his sons heard the noise of the shouting from the people of the city, and they were still at the entrance of the city. They were anxious about Dan and Judah, who were not seen by them. They, being on the second wall, Naphtali went up with his wrath excited might and sprang on the first wall to see what caused the noise of shouting when they had heard in the city, which they had heard in the city. Issachar and Zebulun came near to break the doors of the city, and they opened the gates of the city and came into the city. Naphtali leaped from the first wall to the second. Excuse me, family. Where was that? Naphtali leaped from the first wall to the second and came to assist his brothers, the inhabitants of Gash, who were on the wall. Seeing that Naphtali was the third who had come up to assist his brothers, all fled and descended into the city. And Jacob and all his sons and all their young men came into the city to them. Judah and Dan and Naphtali descended from the wall into the city and pursued the inhabitants of the city. And Simon and Levi were from outside the city and didn't know that the gate was opened. They went up from there to the wall and came down to their brothers into the city. The inhabitants of the city had all descended into the city, and the sons of Jacob came to them from different directions. The battle waged against them from the front and the rear. And the sons of Jacob struck them terribly and killed about 20,000 of them, men and women. Not one of them could stand up against the sons of Jacob. And the blood flowed plentifully in the city, and it was like a brook of water. The blood flowed like a brook to the outer part of the city and reached the desert of Beth-chorin. And the people of Beth-chorin saw at a distance the blood flowing from the city of Gash, and about 70 men from among them ran to see the blood. and they came to the place where the blood was. They followed the track of the blood and came to the wall of the city of Gash, and they saw the blood issue from the city. They heard the voice of crying from the inhabitants of Gash, for it ascended to heaven, and the blood was continuing to flow abundantly like a brook of water. And all the sons of Jacob were still smiting the inhabitants of Gash, and were engaged in slaying them till evening, about 20,000 men and women. And the people of Chorin said, "Certainly this is the work of the Hebrews, for they are still carrying on war in all the cities of the Amorites." And those people hurried and ran to Beth Chorin, and each took his weapons of war. They cried out to all the inhabitants of Beth Chorin, who also put on their weapons of war to go and fight with the sons of Jacob. When the sons of Jacob had done smiting the inhabitants of Gash, they walked about the city to strip all the slain. Coming into the innermost part of the city and farther on, they met 3 very powerful men, and there was no sword in their hand. The sons of Jacob came up to the place where they were, and the powerful men ran away. One of them had taken Zebulun, who he saw was a young lad and of short stature, and with his might dashed him to the ground. And Jacob ran to him with his sword, and Jacob struck him below his loins with the sword and cut him in 2, and the body fell on Zebulun. The second one approached and seized Jacob to fell him to the ground. Jacob turned to him and shouted to him, while Simon and Levi ran and struck him on the hip with the sword and felled him to the ground. And the powerful man rose up from the ground with wrath, excited might. Judah came to him before he had gained his footing and struck him on the head with the sword, and his head was split, and he died. The third powerful man, seeing that his companions were killed, ran from before the sons of Jacob, and the sons of Jacob pursued him into the city. While the powerful man was fleeing, he found one of the swords of the inhabitants of the city. He picked it up and turned to the sons of Jacob and fought them with that sword. The powerful man ran to Judah to strike him on the head with the sword, and there was no shield in the hand of Judah. While he was aiming to strike him, Naphtali hastily took his shield and put it to Judah's head, and the sword of the powerful man hit the shield of Naphtali, and Judah escaped the sword. Simon and Levi ran unto the powerful man with their swords and struck him forcibly with their swords. And the 2 swords entered the body of the powerful man and divided it in 2, lengthwise. And the sons of Jacob struck the 3 mighty men at that time, together with all the inhabitants of Gash, and the day was about to decline. And the sons of Jacob walked about Gash and took all the spoil of the city. Even the little ones and women they did not allow to live. And the sons of Jacob did to Gash as they had done to Sarton and Shiloh. Thank you, family. That's the end of chapter 39. Like I say, times are crucial. And as the Lord works, as you see his works on the news and on television and in person, you get to see his work as he performs it. So bless you all. And I will talk to you soon.